Welcome to BARI Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon, and I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
Some weeks I feel rebellious and I just let it
I was
play
going to
out
say, you,
all
go,
the
you,
way.
you
Yeah,
let
just
that play out a lot just then. Was that because you don't know what you want to talk about right now, or was that just you?
No,
agree
I know
with it?
exactly what I want to talk about.
Okay.
So we had a bit of feedback from last week's episode.
Oh, did we?
Yeah,
Jesus.
I did. I had a couple of questions. One was about the negativity towards social media, which I heard a little bit about. And I've forgotten what the other part was. I literally had it in my head. We'll talk about the negativity and I'll think about that. But so I want to clear that up with people is we're not negative on social media and the weight loss community and stuff like that. It's just it does have a negative side to it. I said to someone today, as the podcast goes on, I will clear certain things up. I just feel like time and place is very important to certain things. But yeah, it was just one of those things the wrong person with the wrong mentality going into social media and having that approach. I know personally, I probably I focused a little bit too much on the weight early stages because I was almost being semi-competitive with other people in the weight loss community. Mm. So that's kind of where I go towards with how it can be negative for some people because you can compare, be competitive, and then if you feel like you're losing, you almost get competitive and
too competitive.
Negative.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because I'm a very positive person. So when it comes to the social media, 100%, I think it's a great tool. Does it have its faults? Does a lot of things in life have a lot of faults? Yeah, I think it does. I think, but we've got to be very open and honest. And I think that's what this podcast is about, is being open and honest about certain aspects of different things that can help or hinder you in this process. So I don't know. How you going over there, Switzerland?
You've called me Switzerland so many times today. I
you
don't
sit on the
like
fence
it.
so much.
No, but I think the thing about social media is that I love it. No, the thing about social media is that actually thinking about this probably is a very Switzerland answer. Not everybody's going to love you. Not everybody.
A leader for prime minister. No, okay.
Not everybody has to like you. As long as you're sharing your truths on your own social media and you're not trying to, butter it up a certain way. Certain people aren't going to like you, and that's just what you have to live with. And unfortunately, sometimes it does come out quite toxic if people want to. But we're all keyboard warriors. None of us can turn around and say that we haven't had a dig at somebody just because we're behind a phone.
I don't think I have.
Yeah, you have.
You're wait, let me get the receipts. There was this one time I was a poo head.
You call me I don't know what you call me all the time. You used to call me a butthead. Oh, you're such a butthead. Yeah. I don't know, but there's social media, we all use it at the beginning to validate ourselves because we're all trying to lose weight and we're all comparing ourselves, and that's amazing.
A great tool for that.
But there's a certain time and place where it goes from being validating yourself and then becoming competitive against other people. And you've just got to be aware of your actions and just remember that not everybody's going to like you.
Well, I said that to someone today. I said at the end of the day, it's a great tool, but at some point you start to lose a little bit of the focus on why you started in the first place. We all started our Instagram because we want to connect with others, hopefully help someone else. Yep. That's literally is to clarify or make a clearer picture for someone, and that knowing, going into this surgery, as I said before, I didn't know anyone. So obviously I wanted to kind of give people the heads up, here you go, buddy. It's all you now.
Yeah, but we've stepped away from Instagram and we're now doing this. So
well, that's exactly what I said to someone today because they said, it's sad to see you going away from the Instagram world. And I said, I feel that this is a more pure version of me sharing my process because at the end of the day, you sit down and you write a post, and when you're writing the post, you kind of assume 20 words in, people have probably lost interest anyway.
Yeah.
Where with this, it's if they're listening to a podcast and they get to the 20th minute, it's hey man, you're probably listening to what I'm saying. And
Thanks
you're probably
for
interested.
sticking around.
You know what I mean? With a post, you kind of limit or compress what you're saying, or with a story, you try and reduce it.
But I also think I don't have enough going on a day-to-day basis for me to post every single day anymore. At least here, we have a weekly check-in. So it's kind of once a week, I save up all my little good bits of my week and we talk about it. I talk about my crap bits. I had a few people reach out to me last week.
That was the other thing. Yeah. Because you mentioned how you're not in a good place.
Yeah.
That was the second thing.
Knew it would come up.
Yeah.
Look, I'm fine. I'm okay. I was probably a bit dramatic last week.
Might have been the bottle of wine you had.
Yeah, that too. Like,
throughout the podcast.
don't get the 2 liters together. It's bound to end.
Yeah.
We know what happened last time. Anyway, I'm
Makes 2
okay.
liters?
It's just
Terrible joke. Yeah.
I'm okay. It's just that I've got a lot on my plate at the moment, and I just needed to vent it. So it seems it's Are You Okay Day today. I am okay, guys. Thank
Cheers.
you. So many people have reached out.
Depends what your version of okay is.
Well,
You know.
there's a few people that
got
don't
right.
think that I'm okay, but anyway. But no, that's I share my good, my bad, my ugly on here, and we're stepping away from social media, not because we don't want to be there again, but just because
and I think
this
it
is our outlet.
And like it progresses. Like from the early days, obviously it was about one thing. Later on, it's about another thing. And as time progresses, you kind of just go, is it for you? Like, is it what you want to share at that part of your process? So, because the early stages can change things. And, speaking of early stages.
Oh, yes, you nailed it. I was going to try and do that too, but you beat me to it.
If you can't see, I am dabbing right now.
Oh, God. Talking about early stages, that brings us to our guest tonight, who is sitting on the other line, quite disappointed because she has some semen jokes waiting in the wing because she thought we'd be talking about fertility and suck at our segue, which I've totally ruined anyway because I've just jabbered on. But anyway, our guest tonight, she's in the early stages. She's only around 6 months out from surgery. She had the gastric sleeve in March this year, and she's definitely taken leaps and bounds in this journey. Definitely a success story to watch. Please welcome our guest tonight, Amanda, also known as Amanda.vsg on Instagram. Hi. Oh, Shannon forgot to unmute you.
You shouldn't be surprised by technology diff.
Yeah,
I'm watching.
Yeah,
literally, I'm watching. I'm like, oh, look at her. She's so and then I forgot to press unmute.
You had one job.
55 and you still forget to press
Nail the
unmute.
segue. Forget to press unmute.
The segue was good. We'll forgive you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm glad about that. Thank you so much for coming on. Yes, you are only 6 months down the track, but I'm sure you've got a lot that you can pass on to other people stepping into this process or early stages of planning to go down this process. So we're really excited to sit down and have a chat to you. Let me ask you, before starting this surgery, if you knew you'd be where you were now, would you be happy with the progress you've made?
I would be blown away. If you had have told me even 12 months ago that I would be nearly 55 kilos down, I would have laughed in your face and probably gone and bought a KFC zinger box.
Good taste.
Honestly, but I honestly could not have fathomed ever making progress like I have.
How long ago in life do you think you would have been at this weight? I know you probably did the usual thing where weight loss patients, we go through that final year and we usually have, waiting on our health insurance to pay up and get us the surgery where you gain a little bit of weight. But how long ago do you reckon it was when you were at this weight?
I remember at my friend's 18th birthday, which would have been 2012, I weighed in at 113, which is just heavier than what I am now. So since I was 18 years old, so nearly 10 years.
And if you could sit back and look at your day-to-day actions that got you to where you were weight-wise, can you sit and kind of precisely see where you went wrong, like with the weight gain?
I have dived into this very deep with some very wonderful mental health experts, and it all honestly starts from childhood, learning bad habits. My mum's overweight and has very unhealthy habits with food, and most of my family do as well. So I think that they're ingrained very, very early on. There's not one point in my teenage life where it went and everything changed.
Yeah.
No,
it's not like
but
that.
it got really bad. It started getting really, really bad when I was 23, 24.
Yep.
Yeah.
What were some of those bad habits that you said that have sort of been ingrained since you were a child? Did you notice them as bad habits back then and you just live with them, or is it sort of since losing the weight that you've
a
realised
reflection
that
process
they've
you've
been a
gone
bad
through to
habit?
understand?
It's definitely been a reflection process. So I thought it was completely normal. I actually remember going to a friend's house for dinner one night and being like, where's the rest of it? But my parents both grew up in big families with little money. And so they grew up obviously having a bit of money. So not a lot, we were quite not poor, but, you know, we weren't well off. But there was just big portions, lots of snacks, lots of unhealthy snacks, takeaway quite regularly, a lot of fried foods, big pasta dishes, portion sizes out of this world, kind of monster servings. And that was from an early age. I remember Mum bought me my first Big Mac at 4.5 years old from McDonald's.
Yeah.
Like that kind of big portion sizes.
Yeah. It's funny how, like, when you brought up early, like in the early stages, how that relationship's formed through actions that your parents are like, almost like, I'm going to treat you to this. But then, like, your brain comprehends it as like, this is, I'm doing good in life if I'm having this stuff.
It's funny because my parents, like my mum, she hates cooking and she's very strict, like meat and 3 veg or like meat and salad. Like if we ever had like a quiche or something for the dinner, it was like, ooh, mum's like branched out. To this day, the only time she ever eats spaghetti is if I make it for her. The only time she ever eats tacos is if I make it for her. Like there were certain dishes in the house that even though you can still make them as a healthy option, she just refused to learn how to cook them because she was like, it's not what I know. So like I grew up on very much meat and 3 veg, sort of quite a healthy lifestyle, which then also when I started cooking for myself, I started being sort of like experimenting with food, which I guess almost I started making like the massive lasagnas and like all of the like the pastas. I was obsessed with pasta because mum never cooked it for us. So I was like, oh, what can I cook with pasta and that sort of thing. So it was almost kind of like I had the opposite where after a game of netball when I was younger, mum would, if I scored, which I was a terrible shooter, so it never happened, but only if I scored, she'd like buy me a Happy Meal or something like that from McDonald's. And like, so I was almost like the complete opposite to what a lot of people say that their parents, you know, 4.5, you had a Big Mac, that sort of thing. But because my mum was so strict on diet and food and I guess somewhat lazy in the kitchen, it almost made me experiment / rebel in the kitchen, which is then I implanted my own bad habits on myself because I was like having fun with food, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But I wonder what that like, you know, it is a rebellious thing, I guess. But it's funny how you said that with the meat and 3 veg thing, because like I grew up with the same thing, meat and 3 veg. And I remember like with Ash, my ex, went to her house and their thing was satay. Like they always had satay. So it's like I would love to sit in the world. Satay. It sounds so classy. I'd love to sit in the world of like a family that has never struggled with weight and see their food patterns.
Well, it's
and
funny
how they
because
differ.
My best friend growing up through high school, through primary school, through everything, she was one of those, bless her cotton socks, love her to pieces, but she was one of those kids that she worked at KFC and she could eat KFC 5 times a day and never gain weight.
5 times a day?
Yeah.
I highly doubt that.
Mate, you've seen her. You know what she looks like.
5 times a day.
She hasn't.
She would be broke for one.
She worked at KFC, so she got it for free.
Okay. Either way.
Mate, turn your hearing aid up. Anyway, like I used to go over to her house for dinner and to me this was unheard of, and because I kind of class a hot chook from Coles or Woolies like slightly unhealthy because it's already prepared for you. And like her mum would come home, nurse, like registered nurse, she'd come home from working like a 14-hour shift and I'd be over their house for dinner and she'd just pull out a hot chicken from the bag and be like, here's your hot chick. Here's your hot chick. Here's your hot chicken.
Yeah, I had a mate like that too. Yeah.
Here's your hot chicken. Here's your Caesar salad out of a packet. Serve yourself for dinner. And I'd be like, it's not fresh. What is going on? But like, it's still a healthy meal. But like in my mind, I was like, it's not healthy because it's out of a packet. Like that's my mentality.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I remember my dad had an accident when I was like between grade 6 and year 7, and so money was very, very tight. He wasn't working, and 3-4 nights a week we'd have spaghetti, and it was the meat sauce was out of a tin.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't even home cooked sauce. It was just money was that tight, and so from that time on, Mum and Dad worked pretty tight on money for like 5-6 years until I got a job. And you ate everything that was on your plate, and there was those big portion sizes. And like I remember having an argument with my dad once, and I said, I feel sick, and he was like, you are not leaving this table. It is disrespectful. Your mother has been cooking this meal, and it was like spaghetti with sauce from a tin.
She microwaved it for at least 3 minutes. Okay, like,
she did. Oh no, you didn't even microwave it. It was like pre-microwave sauce packets. It was literally in a tin, and it was foul, and I hated it. But I distinctly remember having this argument with my dad because he would not let me leave the table because I have to eat everything, including the garlic bread. So yeah, I definitely grew up thinking that it was rude or wasteful to not eat everything that was on your plate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting actually when we were talking to Lita about like how that's changed in households these days, because I was the same. I grew up with like stuffing kids of Africa, blah, blah, blah. And these days it seems to be, you know, which I think is maybe appropriate, where it's like you eat until you're satisfied.
Yeah, so there's somebody else in our community who we went to Byron with for the last meetup, and she has a daughter, and that was like, it was probably like the third or fourth time that I've heard her like say, you know, to her daughter, you know, eat until your tummy's full, and her daughter would be like, "Oh, Mum, I'm full," and then she'd turn around and go, "No, are you full or is your tummy full?" And then her daughter had like one more mouthful, and she went, "No, my tummy's full." Like she actually, I mean, she's a 5-year-old like girl. She was quite switched on for her age, but like she literally had one more mouthful and went, "No, I'm actually full." And I was like, wow, that's a really great thing.
It goes
to
both
ingrain.
ways though, because if you put a plate of veggies in front of me, my tummy's full pretty quick. But if you put a plate of pizza in front of me, tummy has a little bit more patience today. It may go a little bit further.
And then half an hour down the track after you're full from eating those vegetables, you can always find a second stomach for your dessert. Always.
100%.
Exactly.
So Amanda, are you a secret sleever?
I am. Oh, I'm on the cusp of unsecreting my sleeve self.
We have cusps of secret sleevers now?
Yeah, I'm on the ledge. So if people ask me how I've lost weight, I tell them. If people ask me to my face, I tell them now. But I don't share my weight loss account with people, and I don't, go out into my social groups and say, I'm not eating tonight because I had the sleeve.
Yeah. The sleeve.
I was very much adamant that I was going to, be out and proud and that kind of thing. And about a week before my surgery, I was in the staff room at work, and I was sitting with my work group of friends, and one of them said, my sister's just had the gastric sleeve like 6 months ago, and she's lost like 35 kilos. And I was like, wow, like that's amazing, good on her. And I'm thinking, I've got a connection.
Yeah.
And then she goes, it's pathetic. Like, imagine being that fat that you can't physically lose weight without having a surgery. And I felt sick. I like cried all afternoon. Like literally almost went home from work early. I cried all afternoon. And I thought to myself, like, if this is what people my age think of weight loss surgery, and I was so negative. I was like, no, I'm cancelling the surgery. I'm pathetic. I can't do it. I'm not doing it. And I thought to myself then, I'm going to keep it secret, not so that I'm misleading people, but purely because I was in such a delicate mental state at that point that I could not handle anyone coming in with their negative vibes to come in and ruin this for me. So I kept it quite a secret. I didn't tell a lot of people, only the people that needed to know. And as I just said, I've only just started being open with people about it.
Does that person that said something to you in the lunchroom or wherever you were, do they know now, or is it still secret to them?
No, they still don't know. If they ask me, I'll tell them.
I would love to be a fly on the wall when you say it to them. Just to be like,
I keep on hoping she's going to bring it up one day and be able to talk about her sister-in-law. And be like, you know what, your sister-in-law actually inspired me to go and get this done. So, make sure you tell her thank you. Like it's just obviously uneducated people that don't understand what this surgery entails.
It's really funny actually, because I had this conversation the other day when I went to Ash up to, like, because she's thinking about having weight loss surgery, and I was talking to a lady up there that works in the office at the surgery where I had it, and she was saying it's funny because like it's becoming more and more norm, but she said it reminds me of braces, and I was like, how does it remind you of braces? And apparently once upon a time, again, it must have been before my time, braces were considered like extreme measure. It's
really?
Like to have braces was like, oh, you're having braces, that's a bit extreme. And she said it's so funny because back in the day when she was younger, she got braces and everyone was like, oh, like that's kind of like extreme.
Ashley had braces.
Like, not Ashley, the chick I was talking to. Sorry, I should really communicate that better. But like she said back in the day, she was very judged because she had braces. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting because it's so normalized these days for someone to have braces that I'm like, you have braces or you just want to fix your teeth? Hopefully one day, and that's what I said to her, it will just be like, oh, you had weight loss surgery? Oh, you just want to go on top of your eating habits. You want to get on top of your weight for once. It kind of excited me a little bit that like, hopefully one day we'll get to that point, because I personally know myself with that whole being judged and feeling like I was very unsure. Like I remember like even talking to my mum, who's the most accepting person ever. And she kind of put it in a way that was like a really polite way of saying like, are you sure? You know, like as mothers do, and my mum being like super, she would never say no to me ever because she kind of is that kind of mum. But she was kind of like, are you sure? Like it's not too much. It is. It plays on your head a lot because we come from a position of like being very, I guess, people pleasing, like where you don't want to. You want to do what's best for you, but you also don't want to do something that someone's going to be like, yeah, but
you know what? Nobody wants to be judged. I was a secret sleever to some point.
Yeah,
like,
you were. When I first met you,
when we first met, like I told a handful of my good friends, and I remember I called my brother the night before surgery because I thought he, out of everybody, was going to be the most judgmental. He ended up crying on the phone to me and, you know, congratulating me on taking my health into my own hands and blah, blah, blah. But like Shannon and I used to go to a boot camp together, and Shannon was out and proud about the fact that he had sleeve surgery. And I was like, oh, I just cut out sugar and I don't
literally.
Like,
it was super awkward because they're like, oh, you've lost weight too. Yeah, I've lost this much weight. Oh, yeah, I had weight loss surgery. And Alita's like, yeah, I just cut sugar out of my diet.
they're like, hang on a second. He's lost 25 kilos. You've lost 20 kilos. He's had surgery. You just don't eat sugar anymore. I'm like,
and you're going to a weight loss get together, and you're going to a health and fitness get together in the Gold Coast. What are the chances? I was like, the same weekend?
I can't do this boot camp anymore.
Yeah, that's not awkward at all. Amanda, like you're 6 months out, clearly succeeding, because I was looking at you before and afters today because I was like, wow, like this chick is killing it. What are some of those early stages successes that you're kind of getting? Like mine, I remember early days was being able to tie my shoes without holding my breath.
Mine was painting my toenails.
That was like
mine.
What are some of them?
Toenails.
In all honesty, one of the biggest things that has made me go, wow, like I'm different, is going into the cubicle at McDonald's, the toilet. At my biggest, I couldn't get in the door properly without a wee little slidey thing to get in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was busting, and I went in, and I was like automatically like stressing about, oh my God, how am I going to get in? But then I just went in with a breeze, and I was like, wait, okay. And like before surgery, like just little things. Before surgery, my skin was disgusting. It was flaky and dry and dull, and just like my skin's radiant now. Like just those little things. Being able to get through a whole day at work without wanting to break down and cry because I'm so tired, and being able to walk. Like I know that sounds so cliche, but like just being able to walk more than 100 meters without, you know. And I would never. I don't think I'll ever be a full on runner, but my first biggest thing was I wanted to run for 1 minute, 1 minute straight. And there's like a straight road down beside my house, and I was like, all right, I'm going to run it. And I didn't stop. And I ran the 1 minute, and I literally burst into tears. And this elderly lady walked past, and she's like, love, are you okay? And I was like, I just ran for a minute. And she was like, okay. But like for me, if like for 3 months prior, I was 160 kilos almost. Yeah. And then here I am running for a minute. It was a big thing. So there's little things every day, like the skirt that I'm wearing, you can't see right now. The first time I put it on, it was skin tight, and I was like, oh, I'll get into it one day. And I put it back on today because it's a nice day in Victoria today, and it's falling off. I can't wear it without a belt. Like just little things like that every day. I catch myself in reflections, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's
how you doing?
How you doing?
Yeah, that makes me so happy.
Isn't it funny how
that.
like it's the little things, like we all just think, oh, I really want to be able to, you know, fit into a cubicle at McDonald's, or like I want to.
I don't think that was ever a concern of mine. It would be something you'd appreciate after the fact, because I don't think I ever walked into a cubicle and went, imagine if I could walk straight on into this cubicle.
I had this. Sorry, go.
I think it was you later that in one of your earlier podcasts you said it was going between cars at the supermarket in car parks, and I used to when you said it, I was like, yes, that's me. And I used to be so scared to walk between cars because I was scared that I was going to rub and scratch their car
or set the alarms off, like the people.
That was honestly my biggest fear. But like just little things like being able to fit between cars without having to do some weird little side shuffle. Like, unless you've been a big person, you can't physically understand or mentally understand those little wins. And they happen every day. And there's just something new every day that makes you go, holy moly.
And it's honestly,
look at
you need to, and I always say this to people, like at the end of the day, you have these big goals, like hitting your goal weight and whatever it is that can motivate you forward. But it's going to be those little things that day to day that keep you getting up and going again, you know, like showing up, as we like to say, like, you know, going for that extra walk or, you know, choosing not to eat that food. It's those little day-to-day wins, especially in that first year, that really motivate you and get the best results. And I love that.
My surgeon said to me when I first met him, he said, you know, you're a bigger girl, you're going to have a bit of weight to lose. I would expect you to lose 43 kilos in the first year. And I was like, you know what, if I lose 43 kilos, that'll be okay. Like, I'll still be pretty big, but 43 kilos is still pretty good. And then I hit 43 kilos at like 4 months.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? Like, I've already hit the weight I'm going to lose. And I spoke with him on the phone and he goes, you keep going, you keep pushing. And then I rang him the other day and I was like, oh, I hit 50 kilos this morning. He goes, stop it. No, you did not. And it was so exciting. Like, he was so excited for me, but I want to get out and exercise. I want to make good choices. I want to be the best version of me. And for someone that, you know, a couple of years ago was in hospital after trying to take their own life compared to now, it makes me emotional to think about, really, like just that change, that progress. And it wouldn't have been possible if I didn't do it.
You mentioned something earlier, and I was actually going to mention about the mental health side of things, because you made a comment earlier on that it made me think, oh, okay, I think there's a bit more there with the whole, you know, how has that side of things gone, like, you know, prior to surgery versus now? How has the mental health side of things progressed?
This is the best I have been in my entire life. There is no doubt in my mind about that. I don't hate myself to start with. I don't look in the mirror anymore and see disgusting, awful things. I don't say disgusting, awful things to myself. I see good now. I don't think I'm a bad person anymore. I feel like I can process things better. I don't know if it's because I'm eating better or I'm feeling better or whatnot, but bad days don't last for a month anymore. And obviously you're still going to have bad days. I still have days where I get sad and I cry to my boyfriend about silly things, but they're few and far between now, and I feel like I'm just the best that I've been. So I was diagnosed with ADHD a few years ago, which really explained a lot for me. But I used to see a lot of the negative sides of ADHD, but now I'm seeing a lot more of the positive, the creative, fun side. So I love that.
I just texted Shannon, bad days don't last as long anymore, because I would really like to turn that into a quote for the BARI Banter socials, because I think that's something that people need to like think of, because you know, a lot of us leading into surgery, we are in dark places, whether or not we're willing to admit it or not. Like I know that I thought that I was a big happy person, pardon the pun, but like I thought I was a very happy person leading into surgery, but the more that I started to realize after surgery, this is how life should have been lived.
This is
like
what...
the more you realize that you were like, I was hiding away from doing certain things, and like, you know, I was like, oh, like I'm okay, I'm fine, but then you spend an hour in bed crying because for no reason, like just because you felt shit about yourself. Like, so I think that's I would really like to highlight the fact that you know, bad days, you still have bad days. Everybody has bad days, but they just don't last as long.
Well, I think it was Brenda said, like, it's not bad days, it's bad moments. And like, and again, like what you just said before, like, I don't think you were talking about walking between cars and going into toilet blocks. And I was like, the first thing that came to my head was, I don't remember those experiences because I never left the house. Like that was my way of dealing with those uncomfortable situations in public where I felt like I was intruding or I was doing something that was going to inconvenience someone else. I just didn't leave the house. Like, so it's just funny how like it all plays its own little parts and everyone's sitting there. We all have our little quirks, I guess, with our mental health that, you know, and social anxieties that are kind of restricting us in our life that we don't really realize are happening until they start.
The aftermath, yeah.
Yeah, you know, like they start going away and you start appreciating that, like, oh, wow, I've been living this kind of weird, like, sheltered life to a degree.
Well, it's funny talking about trying to fit into places where we, you know, fit in between cars and all that sort of thing. There's one sushi shop that Shannon and we go to quite often now.
Yeah.
But, like, it was somewhere that I used to go with my girlfriends all the time. And it's sitting on, like, high stools in, like, a booth. And I couldn't fit properly because of how high the high chair was and how low the table was. At my biggest, I couldn't physically fit in there. So I had to sit on the edge of the stool and, like, pretend like I was comfortable and, like, you know, you're sitting there with your girlfriends eating sushi. You're there for an hour and a half, 2 hours or whatever, just chatting away. And it was I was so anxious about it. Like, if we got there, and it's always busy, if we got there and we couldn't get into, like, an actual booth with the couches and all that sort of thing, which when you're 100 and something kilos, getting into those little booths as well is a struggle. But then if we were on a high table, I would just dread it because I was just like, I can't fit. Like, my legs, I'd end up getting, like, a line across my leg from where it was, like, digging into, like, it's just, and now it's just those little pressures that, like, I don't even think about anymore. The girls are like, do you want to go for sushi? I'll be like, yep, hell yeah, let's go. Like, it's just, you don't think about it anymore.
Yeah, it's
like,
different.
Talking about mental health and how you're feeling a lot more clarity and everything now, do you think that it's not just because you've lost the weight and you are like, you like what you see in the mirror? Do you think that you've just got a lot more clarity in your life in general?
I feel like there's a peace about my life now. I don't spend every minute of the day obsessing over food and worrying if people are looking at me or if people are judging me. And I just honestly feel peace with everything.
So you don't have that anxiety anymore?
I definitely still sometimes do. As I said, those bad days still come in, but I just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
Like I was 160 kilos. Like I have lived through hell, and I'm not there anymore. So no matter how bad things seem, or no matter what I'm going through, like, it's never going to be as bad as that. So that's the only way really I can describe it now, is that there's just
sort of puts things into perspective.
Well, it does. Like, and I've said this on multiple occasions. It's you recognizing that's really good, because it's like, I remember certain things like going out and going shopping and not feeling that sense of like, who am I going to see? What are they going to say to me? Like, losing that happened without me even recognizing. But then me looking back on it had a sense of like, oh, wow. Like, I remember a time, like, it almost like felt like a weight was lifted when I thought about it, because I'm like, I get to do this stuff now without someone being like, walking through a shop and I don't see someone and scatter because I'm like, oh my God, they're going to comment on how much weight I've gained, or, how I look.
You don't feel like the elephant in the room anymore.
Yeah. Like, it's amazing how much pressure that puts on your mind. Like,
and you wouldn't think that you were, like, it's not like I walked around day to day being like, I'm the elephant in the room. But when you no longer feel like you're the elephant in the room, you kind of like, oh, well, hang on a second.
Why does that have to be elephant?
That's the saying.
Couldn't that be giraffe or something?
It's the saying.
Okay, yeah, fine. We'll go with the elephant.
It's literally a saying. Do you want to discuss the elephant in the room?
The elephant in the room, yeah.
I just feel like that's a bit of like a, pointing towards the obvious a little bit, but yeah, that's fine.
Because anyway, when you, like, it's not like we walked around day to day thinking. Well, we did actually. We did used to walk around thinking, oh my God, people are looking at us, that sort of thing. But then when you start like becoming more confident in yourself and start like releasing the weight off your shoulders, so to speak, you stop thinking about it as much. Yeah, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you're walking around the streets and you bump into someone and you're like, oh my God, I didn't actually have that anxiety attack before they approached me. Like,
I remember, like, I went for a run in a dress once. There's no way I would have done that once upon a time. Like,
once?
Well,
only once?
Times. Well, once that you know about.
A couple of weeks ago, it was a really nice day, and I had this crop top that I wanted to wear with high-waisted jeans, and I'd never, ever, ever worn a crop top before. And I was walking down the street and I could see this girl looking at me, and those thoughts came back again. And I hadn't had them in a very long time. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, they're judging. They're going to take a photo of me. Oh my God, what do I do? I had like almost a panic attack. And she walked up to me and I was like, and she goes, I just want to say, like, you look amazing. Like that shirt with those pants and that shoes. And I was like, wait, what? Like, people are kind?
Oh.
Like, pardon?
What is this?
But what?
Yeah.
But that was kind of like a moment for me where I realized that I'm not that big girl anymore that was the center of people's harassment and just from random people in the street. So
Yeah.
I actually had that happen to me today, to be honest, because I went to CrossFit and I was wearing like my little short shorts that I wear to CrossFit and just a crop. But like before I went to the gym, I had a jumper on, so I wasn't just wearing a crop. Mind you, it was a crop jumper, but I was wearing a jumper and like my pants. And then after the gym, obviously I'm all hot and sweaty, and I had to go to Aldi on my way home.
Yep.
Mate, did you have dinner tonight? I had to go to Aldi. Anyway, I was walking through Aldi and wearing like a little crop, and I had a little bit of my stomach sticking out or whatever. And somebody started looking at me strangely, and I was like, oh my God, they're judging me because I'm walking through a shopping center with the crop on and little short shorts, and they were like staring at me. And I was like, just walk away. And he was like, excuse me. And I was like, oh my God, what is he going to say?
oh,
He goes,
here we go.
you dropped something. And I was like, oh my God, thank you. And I like grabbed my shopping list off him and was like, oh, and like ran away because I was like, how embarrassing. I honestly thought that he was going to be like, why are you wearing that in public? Like, do you not realize that I can see
That's what I was thinking about before. So with Amanda, when she was saying it earlier, like with the whole, people feeling or saying certain things about yourself, I feel like as much as we sit here and we go, oh, society as whole is judging us, I feel like sometimes it is our own.
100%.
Like definitely is our own.
Sure.
And like I think that's what we need to take away from this is at the end of the day, people may not be judging you, but you are judging you.
You're judging yourself in the way that you think that people are judging you, and they're not actually judging you that way.
Yeah, so like that's the whole thing. If you get to a point where you aren't judging you, whether it's 10 kilos, 15 kilos, 20 kilos, or whatever it is under the weight you are at now, that is the point that you are going to be the most happy because it's going to give you the most freedom mentally. And like, so you don't ever like, someone listening to this podcast early on in the stages or pre-surgery sitting there and being like, oh, what is it true? Is people in society judging me? No, it's not. It's our own social pressures we inflict on ourselves. That is what you need to target. That is what you need to release yourself from because that'll give you the most happiness and like, I guess, freedom in your own head.
At the end of the day, I walked into Aldi today feeling confident wearing a crop and some short shorts with my donut socks on. Like I walked in there being extremely...
Hashtag Paris runway. Yeah.
I had no issue with it at all. Like, it wasn't until I noticed that somebody looked at me that I was like, should I not be feeling this way? And then I was like, well, hang on a second. No, you've walked around. Like if you're confident enough at the gym to wear this, why aren't you confident enough to walk? And then I was like, oh, maybe it's not appropriate to be walking through a supermarket in your bra and undies, but whatever, like it's all good. But like it was, no, it was just that I dropped my shopping list and he was being a kind Samaritan. So stop judging yourself.
So Amanda, 6 months out, like how have you found the first 6 months? Like be honest and like think about early stages, like,
the
in
first
your
2 days in hospital,
your recovery, like break it down for us, that first 6 months. How have you realistically seen it?
I don't want to be that person, but I've actually had a really good run. Out of surgery that night, I was up and walking around drinking my water because I knew I wasn't coming out of hospital until I could get the meals down, and I knew that I had to start drinking or sipping straight away. The water hurt a lot. Water hurt. I still struggle drinking straight water. Like I have diet cordial almost every day still. But I was home the next day. So within 24 hours, I went into surgery at 1:30 on the Tuesday and I was home by 2 o'clock on the Wednesday.
Wow.
So I was in and out really quick. My surgeon was really impressed, and I think it was just because I was so prepared. I knew exactly what was coming for me. Listening to the podcast and being a part of the Instagram community at the time, I knew what was coming for me and I knew what I had to do. First couple of days at home, I was pretty miserable, but again, I knew that I had to keep getting up and had to keep walking around and drinking my water and trying to keep good, keep the hydrolyte, all that kind of stuff.
And is that what you found the most handy? Is like the getting up, walking, staying hydrated? That was
for sure.
Tips that you found really handy in those early stages.
Yeah, having a bottle of water by your bed at all times helps.
Yeah.
But just knowing every hour you have to get up, even if you just walk to the end of the hallway and back, you need to get up and keep moving around, because I healed so quickly and I've had such a good journey. And I do honestly bring it down to that first couple of weeks where I was just prepared. I had the fridge. I was uber prepared. I'd cleared out a shelf in the fridge and the cupboard, and I had everything there that I might need. Broths, and I'd cooked soups and blended them up, and I had smoothies ready to go and protein shakes. Like, I was organized, but just knowing I had to get up and walk up to the kitchen or walk around, and the partner was really good. He was very encouraging, come on, let's get up, let's go to my house or something like that. So he was like my biggest supporter in that first couple of weeks. So the journey's been good.
Yeah, it makes a difference having that support. How did you find, like, your partner and your mum and those key people around you? How was the support earlier for you?
My partner has honestly been the best. Every time I do a weigh-in, I text him how much I've lost, and he always tells me that he's so proud and good job. And he tells me all the time that he loves me. Doesn't matter what I look like, or it never mattered what I look like. Like, I look back at a photo that I took of myself on our first date, and I think to myself, holy crap, like, I'm a different person to that person. But he has loved me regardless through this entire process. And having someone there that's like your best friend definitely helps a lot. I'd kind of prepared him for what might be happening just after surgery, and he came over that night that I got home and brought me flowers and sat with me, and he's like, I haven't had any dinner, but I need to kind of have some dinner. Like, I'm going to bring a pizza. I won't eat it in front of you. Like, just little things that he does. And
at that point in time, you're like, I don't even want food right now. You could eat whatever you want in front of me. Just
keep it away from me.
If you did it like 2 hours before your surgery, you probably would have punched him in the face. But like
different
a couple
story.
hours after, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, but he's the best. Like, just little things like reminding me to put my protein in my water, or get your measuring spoon out to measure your food, that kind of thing. Like, he's real good. He understands, and he knows how important it is to me. So yeah, he's real good with it.
Love it.
My family, my mum's very jealous that one, I was able to do this and that I have done this and I've lost the weight. She's struggled with her weight her entire life, so sometimes her positivity can come across very, very negative, and I do struggle with that sometimes. My dad doesn't seem to care too much one way or another, which does cut deep. I've always had a bit of a tumultuous relationship with my dad, so he used to make comments about my weight all the time, telling me I shouldn't eat this, or you need to stop eating that, or all the time, making comments. And then I make this decision and I lose all this weight, and I'm still not getting what I needed from that. But I have good support. One of my good friends went through the sleep a couple of months after I did, so we've had each other to bounce off. And as we spoke about before, I haven't told a lot of people about my sleep, so I have relied very heavily on the Instagram, like the weight loss surgery community. I'm very, the episode you guys did last week with a leader about it all, I did think about it a lot. I'm very careful with who I follow, and I'm very careful with who follows me, purely because I didn't start my Instagram to become an influencer and to get famous and sponsorships and all this. I came because I didn't have anyone in my life that had gone through this, and I needed someone that had gone through it, or people that were going through it. I needed someone to understand that I was hungry mentally but not physically.
Yeah.
So I've been real careful with that kind of thing, but that's been my main support system was my boyfriend and Instagram.
But it's funny how, like, those little parts, like, you're saying with your parents and stuff like that. Like, my dad's very much the same. Like, he I could succeed at anything and it would be like, work, buddy. Like, I get that. Like, I totally do get that relationship, and I get I think it says a lot of maturity within your mindset to recognize, like, maybe your mum's support doesn't show you support in the way you would assume she would. Because I think, like you were saying, like, combining the two worlds together, the Instagram world and your parents and how they show their support, it's very much the same. Like, sometimes, like, support can be shown in a way that has insecurities behind it. And, like, you looking beyond that and being like, I think she appreciates what I'm doing, or like she kind of like is grateful for the process I've gone through. There is that little bit of insecurity that kind of goes, well, you know, that's something I should have maybe secretly in their head gone and done earlier in her life. And the same with Instagram and stuff like that. Like that's the message we try and get across a lot of time with Instagram and stuff is there's a lot of insecurities out there. We all have insecurities and that's something we always say, like, you know, so as much as, you know, you will do well and you feel good, there's always going to be someone that looks at you and goes, but you've done better than I am and I'm not happy with that and I'm going to try and bring you down. And like, you know, as a lot of humanity does.
Yeah, I posted a before and after photo today, and I had someone message me on Instagram, and they said, I had my surgery like 3 weeks before you did, and I've only lost 26 kilos. Like, how is that possible? You mustn't be eating enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, first things first, I'm a foot taller than you, and I started 60 kilos heavier than you. So, of course, I'm going to lose weight a bit easier than you, or the weight's going to be quicker to come off than it's going to be for you. And I said, everyone's journey is so different. Like, you cannot compare yours
numbers
to mine, and I can't compare mine to someone else. And it got me thinking, well, she goes to me, how many calories are you eating a day? And I said, I don't count my calories. And she was like, how can you lose weight without, like, she got really defensive.
Yeah.
And I said, hun, like, I'm real sorry that my post has upset you like this, but, you know, this is my space to share my successes. And I'm really sorry, but, you know, you should be really proud that you've lost 26. Like, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And then she said, her final statement before she blocked me was, at least I don't have loose skin like you do.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, that was nasty.
It is
but,
nasty.
Jab.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like,
it is one of those things, especially with social media, like, and as I said earlier, we're going to slowly talk about certain issues within the weight loss community that we've had to deal with personally. And it's very similar to what you just said there, where like people,
I got accused early on
for
photoshopping my images, and it's like,
really,
I understand because
it was a loose skin post.
It was
weird, but
like my post was me. I was jumping in a bikini and I was talking about my loose skin, and one of the comments on it was, "You photoshopped this image," and I was like, "But I'm talking about my wriggly bits and my loose skin and all that sort of thing." And like, I'm a graphic designer. I could Photoshop my images if I really wanted to. And I was like, they're like, whoever you paid to Photoshop your images did a terrible job. And I was like, you clearly didn't read my post and you clearly don't know what I do for a living, because like, A, I wouldn't pay someone to do that, and B, I wouldn't be talking about my loose skin on that sort of post.
But taking away from that, what you just said then, I kind of, my whole headspace with like the social media side of thing goes towards the person that left those comments for you.
Yeah.
They're the people
Says
that
more about
like,
them
well,
than...
no, but it's not even that. Like they're the kind of people that social media is affecting them in a negative way.
Yeah.
So as much as we can sit here and be like, oh, these people that do really well and they got all this validation and like they got all these successes and stuff, there are people who take a lot of negatives away from social media, and it's not, definitely. Social media isn't meant for them. Like, and that's why I'm saying, like, Instagram has been an amazing tool. Like, I've loved the people I've been able to connect with. I love the people that, you know, I've been able to feed off, because like their successes like kind of feed into my successes, and like we kind of like, there are people out there who it impacts negatively. Like you, as you just said, everybody is different because everybody is different. So it's like your weight is going to come off differently. And then like someone who could be 2 feet shorter and be like, you lost 60, I've lost 40, I've failed. You know?
Exactly.
And I think that is like, that's the part of Instagram that I kind of say, like, use it as a tool. Like, don't use it as like your measure of your success, because everyone's success is different. Yeah.
The only person that you could possibly maybe measure your success off would be as if you had an identical twin and you both had surgery at exactly the same.
Because someone like my height, like, and this is me being open and honest about my whole process, like someone at my height, my weight, starting weight, would look at me and be like, oh, I failed because he did better than I did. But I was also skipping meals. I was also using my restriction to its max capacity. Like, I was exercising religiously. I was under eating. And I realize now that was a mistake. But back then I was like, no, but I'm losing all this weight. I'm so successful. Like, how good is it? You know, but it wasn't. It's not an accurate representation, because like you need to sit there and measure your success of you. Like, that's the only person.
But then you've also got to remember those people as well. Like, just to flip it, you see if you're the person that's sitting there feeling like that you're not succeeding as much as the other person,
delete the app.
Yeah, because there's people who they post, gym selfies. They post that they're there twice a day, they're working out, blah, blah. But then that person then also goes home and eats a block of chocolate and doesn't show you everything else that they're doing. So you can't measure your success on anybody else because unless you are doing what's it called, the Truman Show, where you're literally filming every single second of the day, you cannot compare yourself to that person.
No. And I think people, I know I touched on it last week, some people like to share their highlight reel.
Yeah.
And I've been very open in sharing the highs, the lows and everything in between. As I said, never for anyone, not to get me fame or success or anything like that, more for my own reflection. I love looking back on my old posts and my old stories and that kind of thing just to see my change. But some people will only share their highlights. They will only share their weight losses, like their scale weigh-ins, or how wonderful and sunshine and love and flower their days are. And you just sit there and you think like it's complete bogus. But for someone that's not mentally strong like I am now, if I had seen that a year ago, that would have ruined me. It would have crushed me because it's so competitive and people do compare so much, and it's a wonderful tool and I really love it. But as I said, I've been very careful now who I follow, and I unfollow people quite a bit because their values don't align with my values in regards to this whole process.
I'm sitting here like scrolling through, being like, has she unfollowed me?
No, you guys are the OGs.
Yeah, no, but it's one of those things where like it also plays into like I'm an empath, or you're an empath. And we talked about this, I think it was Zash's episode, like way back, where we talked about like I take into consideration my actions on other people's like choices. So like me, I guess some people would sit there, and as much as I thought I was sharing a very realistic vision of my journey, might have been a highlight reel to some people, but I also viewed it as like that was what I wanted to share at the time because I felt safe in whatever I was sharing was leading people in the right direction.
And that goes to show that by exactly what we were talking about in the intro of this. Like you had people reach out to you today, like talking about last week's episode where you were kind of like saying that we were taking a step back. No. But and then they were saying like, but you don't understand by you sharing everything that you have, it's what's given them the push and the motivation to keep on going, which is exactly why you do it.
And like I think we talked about this before again, but like it was like it's obviously not going to equate to someone else's realistic.
No.
I guess. Like, because like I've had many of things where people call me fake and blah, blah, blah. And if I was in a bad mental state, and this is again why it comes back to like I think it's a great tool, but I struggled a lot with my mental health, and social media in general played into that hugely. Like one, I'm grateful because it strengthened me mentally, but it also, if it hit me at the wrong time.
Which it did.
I think it did at one point where I took a break and I was very like down on the world because social media looked at me a certain way, and people like a small, like tiny majority, like one or two people within like all these people saw me a certain way, and it really played into my own insecurities that they viewed me a certain way.
Which is what we were just talking about before as well. You put so much pressure on yourself because you thought people thought about you in a certain way.
Yeah, but it's very hard not to, I think. Like, even the people that sit there and say, like, I don't care how people view me, care.
I'm going to be a very Switzerland answer here and say, in the world, the current world that we're living in, social media is a way for us all to connect. So, as like, I think now so more than any other time, we need to be leaning on each other. We need to be reaching out to each other. We need to be spreading positivity, and we need to be each other's hype girls and hype boys because we're living through a shitty time at the moment. And I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but it's not going away anytime soon. So the more positivity and the more that we can, pick each other up and everything on social media, the better.
This is very Switzerland answer. Yeah, good work, Switzerland. No.
Vote for me and Miss Australia.
No, you are right, but I also I think back to a conversation I had with Mary once, like transforming Mary. Where
not a handle anymore, but keep going.
Yeah, but like we talked about, like you can only fill from a glass when you have enough to fill. Like if you're the lower half you can't fill.
And I think that's where I've been getting like recently, where I'm saying I'm not okay. My glass is below half full. I'm still okay.
But you're still trying to fill other people's glasses.
My glass
That's the
is,
issue.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. So like last week when I touched on the fact that I'm struggling a little bit, my glass is like a quarter full, and I'm okay at a quarter full. But you can't expect me to fill your glass up halfway when I've only got a quarter.
You are the kind of person who would give 2/4 out of your empty glass in order to make someone else smile.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where you need to find that compromise. You need to find your compromise, because some people's glasses are a lot more full than others. But if you feel like it's taking away from a glass that's almost empty, maybe it's time to be like, hey, take a break, focus on me. Let's fill my glass up before I try and like fill someone else's up. Because that's social media has those whole twists and turns, because as much as our weight loss journey and our bariatric journeys are also very different, our social media journeys are also very different. So it's like, you know, how you interact
and we all
with
focus
people
on
is
different
different.
things too.
How you want to share your things are different. I think the whole thing is there's this beautiful button. It's called unfollow. You know,
exactly,
if you
100%.
feel like it's someone's impacting you negatively, or you feel like you're going to impact them negatively, maybe it's just time to press that magic button and just, you know, you don't have to deal with them anymore.
Or just there's this thing called like scroll. Just keep going.
Yeah, just scroll on.
Just scroll on.
Yeah.
You know?
Just keep scrolling, babe. Just keep
That's
scrolling.
it.
Just keep scrolling, babe.
So, Amanda, you're quite early on in your journey. We've established this already. But and you've obviously had an amazing success, lost 50 kilos, and you mentally you're getting more stable. What's next for you? What's on the cards?
Way to make it. So honestly, yes, continue. yeah.
What's
You're an
next?
asshole.
Yeah, what's next? Yeah.
I want to be able to run more. I never thought that I'd be a runner, but I want to be able to run longer and further so I can survive a zombie apocalypse. That's what I keep telling myself. Keep running.
Oh, I love
because then you can escape the zombies. That's what I tell myself when I run. I want to be able to do like a park run and not be like in the last. I've never done a park run, but I want to be able to do that kind of thing where running isn't scary.
Yeah.
But I guess I was saying before, I feel a bit sad sometimes that the version of me that was 21 to up to 26 missed out on so much. And I don't want to focus on my weight or worry about that stuff anymore. I just want to kind of make up for the stuff that I missed. Now that I'm feeling a lot better and can do a lot more, like I want to be able to kind of make up for the stuff that I missed. I want to be able to go out and create more memories and do more fun stuff.
I love that.
Yeah, like the person that I was a year ago, I was spending $50 a day 4 or 5 times a week on junk food to make myself feel better and drinking over 2 liters of Pepsi Max a day. And I didn't leave my house very much, and I didn't go to parties. I didn't go out for brunch. I always made excuses to not do things. I don't want to do that anymore. That's what next is. That is what is next for me, is to
live life.
Like, just live.
Yeah.
If the last 18 to 2 years has taught me anything, it's that being stuck inside isn't great. And there's a lot out there that you can actually go and do. So go do it.
Yeah. It's funny because you remind me a lot of where there's a lot of things that you've said tonight during the podcast and that reminded me of me. And so much to the point that when you just said, like, I want to be able to outrun an apocalypse, there's certain times that I've been running, like, and it's been, like, dark. And, you know when you're walking out in the dark and it's, you hear someone behind you, or you get it kind of a bit kind of like, oh, what are they doing? There's been times where I've been like, you know what? I look like a runner now, so I'm not going to get abducted because I reckon that person thinks that I can run faster than what they can.
I'm going to outrun them.
Yeah, I can outrun them.
I think that's a girl thing, because if I hear someone creepy in the bushes, I'm getting fitter so I can chase them and be like, were you here for something? Let's hang out.
It's just funny that, when you were like, oh, the zombie apocalypse, I was like, it's so funny because I literally have those moments too where you'll be like running and then you'll turn around and you're like, oh, there's someone there. It's fine. I can probably outrun them. And even if I can't outrun them, they think that I'm fit because I'm already running, so they won't chase me.
We had this conversation once before where it was like, if I got into, like, someone stole something, I'm like, you may have me over 100, but how do you go for 50?
Yeah. I can outrun you for 42 Ks, mate.
Yeah, you may have you in the first 200, but how long can you go for? Yeah, eventually.
You just stop and you wait. You're like, okay, buddy, I'll give you like a 3-minute head start. You can get half a K down down the road, I'll see you in a minute, mate.
Yeah.
I'm coming for you. Yeah.
So-
no, I love it.
Sitting here, what would you say is your fuel for success?
Sorry, can you say that again?
What is your fuel? Like what is it that fuels you to want to succeed moving forward?
I think back to the person I was at 24 or 25, around that age, and how sad and broken and unhappy, miserable I was, and I was suicidal and not in a good place. And that version of me had to pull myself out of that shit time. And I'm doing this for her, which is technically still me, but that person had to work so hard to get themselves out of that hole to try and make a better life. And now I'm making the better life. I have to keep doing it. My fuel is myself.
Yeah.
And making me the best version of me, I guess.
Yeah, I love that.
I feel like there's so much that we can unpack with you. Like, honestly,
Yeah.
like it's just you're like an onion.
I think
you've got so many
putting
layers.
it out there, I think you're an episode I would love to touch back in like a year and a half.
In a year and a half, yeah.
And see how things have progressed. Because you are
Switched on.
and just very much processing things as you go along, and I love it because it's like you're kind of unpacking. Like you are unpacking, and I think you're like very much in that stage of still like understanding things, like moving forward, finding those. But I think a year and a half when, you know, things are, you know, you're kind of like, okay, I'm on my own now. I think that's the time that I feel like you're going to be going through that process time of like, this is me. Like, like you're going to like really flourish from that situation. Yeah, I'm excited. Like I'm excited to get you back on, have a chat, because you are like mentally processing things amazingly. And I think yeah.
Sorry, go. I just think like if there is someone out there that's listening and they're thinking of it, or they've just had it, or that kind of, like, you know, in that early process, like, you have to work for this stuff. I don't want anyone to look at me and what I've just said tonight and be like, well, I'm going to go get the sleeve and it's going to fix everything. Like, it doesn't fix everything. It's a tool. We say it all the time that it's a tool, but you have to use that tool in the right way. You have to reach out for help, and you have to use the help. You have to go see the dietitian and psychologist. You can't just expect it to come to you. You have to work hard. And it hasn't been easy to overcome these things. I used to see food as good and bad. There was no in between. It was either you're having a good food or a bad food. And if you have a bad food for breakfast, then, which could have been a coffee for me back in the day, you have a bad food for breakfast, your whole day is bad. But like now it's, you know, sometimes food and nutritious food.
My dietitian shared a post the other day, and it was what's good food and what's bad food. And the picture of the bad food was a picture of an apple that was rotten. And that was bad food. The picture of the good food was an apple that wasn't rotten. Essentially saying the only thing that you shouldn't be putting into your body is if it's physically rotten and you can't eat it. Like, it's all about moderation, and it's all about, you know, learning what's good for your body and all those sorts of things. But I would also like to point out that for you, you're only 6 months out, and yes, you've had an awesome success with losing 50 kilos already. But I think from talking to you tonight, a lot of people will realize that it isn't a walk in the park, because you have sat here and you have told us everything. You've only been going for 6 months, and you've unpacked a lot.
And I love the approach where you just put that comment in. Is about like, you can sit there and look at the end result and then be like, that's what I'm going to achieve. But you're saying what you just said is it is a tool. Like, we need to treat it like a tool. You know, it's almost like the braces incident. It's like, you can't look at braces and be like, they're going to fix my teeth. Weight loss surgery is going to fix my weight issues. So there's a lot more that comes along with it. Yeah. And like, by you saying that, where it's like that tool isn't going to be the answer, there's a lot more that is going to come along. Like, yes, in the first like year, like the tools, like we said last week, where it's kind of like it's steering the vehicle, you know, it's helping you on your way. You've got to understand, like, after that year, you start going like, maintenance isn't much fun as losing weight.
No.
Like, the fact is, like, losing weight is great because you have that like whole
motivation,
motivation of the scales moving and the weight come down, and then all of a sudden, like, what, you mean I have to stick at this weight for the rest of my life? Like, it's not as much fun.
I think one thing people need to know too is, like, yes, the weight has come off quickly for me, but I've also worked incredibly hard. I go to the gym and I train and I run run. But I work hard. I make good food choices. I know that I can eat pizza, and I know that I could probably eat a block of chocolate or a bag of chips. My boyfriend and I, we love chocolate, and I still have chocolate almost every day. It's obviously, as you said, just in that moderation. But I work very hard. The sleeve doesn't stop you wanting chocolate. You don't get as hungry to begin with, but like you can still have chocolate. You can still have ice cream and popcorn popcorn's not bad, but like you can still have moderation. The bad foods. But you need to have them in that moderation, because I know that my sleeve is stretching out a little bit now. I can eat a bit more.
Yeah.
And I know that over the next 12 months, it's going to stretch even more. And I'm going to be back up to a cup of food and more at a time. But you can fit a lot of calories and a lot of not nutritious food into a cup of food. And I don't want to ever fall back into a place where I choose bad foods all the time.
Yeah.
Like
also don't give into that self-sabotage mentality, I think, is the biggest thing. Like we all have it. We all have it. If you want to sit there and be like, I don't have that self-sabotage mentality, you're lying to yourself, because we've lost weight in the past. We've regained the weight. Why is it? Because we have self-sabotage mentality. We choose certain foods or certain habits in our own life over being thin. I think that's pretty reasonable to say. You don't get to be 80 kilos overweight by a couple of bad choices. Choosing the weight is the best thing for your future going forward. So like that's what I'm saying. Like you need to understand that, like, yes, in that first year is amazing, and like, you're losing on this weight, and but like honestly, I'm now 3 years out, and it's the toughest. Like it is the toughest. Like I literally go through debates of myself. I go through like, why am I making these decisions? Like why am I still unconsciously eating? Like why am I we have these habits that are so ingrained into our life that if we sat there and we pretended like they didn't exist, and then all of a sudden one day we're like starting to gain weight, and then we're like, why is this happening? It's gonna hit you like a freaking sledgehammer. Like you need to understand, like, take advantage of that first year. Take advantage of that second year. Take advantage of that 2.5, 3, 4, 5, whatever it is. Like, just be open-minded to understand that the surgery fixed your stomach and it reduced your appetite, but it also didn't fix your head. Like we have habits that are inbuilt. I'm not saying nothing's wrong with your head. Like that, probably have a beautiful head, but like
I have a beautiful head.
You have a beautiful head, but we have habits that if your goal moving forward is to have a reduced waistline, there's habits that are in our lifestyle that aren't going to help with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest message, and you clearly have the right approach towards it when you're starting to already 6 months out break down yourself and understand these habits and understand these, like, moving forward, your goals and habits that you need to introduce into your life to like get you the success that you want is all you can do.
And I think I really like, I know you didn't mean to make the comparison between the sleeve and the braces, but I kind of like the idea about comparing sleeve to braces, because you get your braces put in, right? And every 6 to 8 weeks, I've never had braces, so don't quote me on how often, but like you still need to go and get your braces tightened, because again, they are just a tool to fix your teeth. If you just pop your braces in there and leave them in there for 3 years, your teeth ain't going to be fixed, because you've got to go in and you've got to constantly tighten, and you've got to stay, So I think that's a really bizarre comparison that you just accidentally made, because again, like the tool, like the sleeve, it is a tool. So you've always, and it's funny because we ask people all the time. I just somehow managed my step goal and I'm sitting down on my watch. That was weird. Yeah, love it. I'm waving my hands around
you
too
think
much.
You have ADHD?
Talking.
That was random. Yeah.
But like we ask everybody in the form, what's your top tip, for anybody like having surgery? And I was thinking about what mine would be. And I think where I am at the moment, being almost 3.5 years out, my top tip would be, it's okay to call yourself out and pull yourself back into line, because where I'm at the moment, I need to start calling myself out on things, because if I don't, I'm going to go into a slippery slope back to where I was before surgery. So I think it's just being able to go, you know what, there's some habits that are starting to come back in. My top tip would be, don't be afraid to call yourself out. Pull yourself up on it and
be your biggest critic, but also be your biggest supporter.
That's it.
Find that balance between the two.
You need to be critical of the things that you're doing. You need to reflect on those things, because as you said, it's a very easy, slippery slope back to where people started. And I basically just don't want to go through pre-op again and have to go get the bypass.
It's a pain in the
pre-op
butt.
was the worst part of this whole thing. I don't want to fall back into bad habits and gain the weight back and then have to go get the bypass because I don't want to do pre-op again. So I'm doing everything I can now to set myself up for good stuff in the future so I don't have to do pre-op again.
Yeah.
I love that. Perfect approach to it. So you going forward, like, what would be your best tip if you sat down with you pre-surgery? What would be your best tip towards you?
I think just trust the process. In all honesty, just trust the process and use the supports that are there for you. Use the dietitian, use the psychologist, use the nurses, use your tool to the best for what it's for. I think, if I could go back and if I could tell anyone, just use the tools that are there for you to help you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's almost like I get exactly what you're saying because like it seems to be something people say a lot is like trust the tool, but I think also just trust, like, don't put so much emphasis on the tool doing what it needs to do. You're going to lose the weight. Like, the tool's going to help you lose the weight, but maybe spend a little bit of that more mental energy that you're using towards, like, where can I lose the weight from? What habits can I do to lose the weight? To maybe go, why do I need to put so much emphasis on the weight in the first place? Like, why has it been an issue? Like, that first year, and I've always said this, is like we put so much emphasis on that first year being so important for, like, the weight loss. But I feel the first year is the most mentally free from the food addiction you're going to be. Like, in that first year, you're going to feel freedom. And I always remember, like, I remember in the early days, and anyone sitting there within that first year listening to this kind of like, shut up, Shannon. You know, because I remember in the first year when people used to say that to me, and they used to be like, you know, what do you know? Like, you know, people used to always say, like, you're in the first year in the honeymoon thing. I'd be like, shut up. Like, I know what I'm talking about. Now I look back and I kind of go, oh, I get what they're saying. Like, there's certain people that, like, had negative things to say about my process and things that now I can kind of, like, appreciate what they were saying because I've taken the ego out of it. And I've kind of gone, I get what they're saying now because, like, I'm now finally getting to a point where I'm starting to go, like, oh, yeah, shit's getting real. Like, you know, like, I'm on my own. Like, the chauffeur in the car hasn't just gotten out. He's just...
that you're using that.
Yeah, it's a leader's thing. He's shat in my seat and left me for dead. You know what I mean? Like, I'm having to deal with this, like, hands on. So, you know, it's one of those things. Like, take whatever you want from this podcast, but I think the biggest thing you need to take from you is you're willing to grow. Like, you've let the ego out. Yeah, you're kind of just sitting there and going, like, I'm like strapped into this roller coaster. I'm riding it out, and I'm just going to appreciate what twists and turns it has. So I think that is the key thing to take away from this.
Talking about that first 1 year where you sort of, you know, they almost flick a switch and you just coasting sort of thing. I remember at my initial consultation.
And it wasn't coasting. Like, let's not devalidate the first year. Like, because I don't want to say coasting because the first year sucked. Like, for different reasons.
Yeah. But the weight comes off.
Yes. But it's also, it sucks because you're dealing with the food restriction stuff. So, like, let's not devalidate that first year, but, like, it's different.
So my surgeon, and I remember sitting in my initial consultation, he said to me, it's like a switch gets flicked and you stop thinking about food. And I sat there and I was like, this man's crazy. I traveled Europe for 6 years, eating my way around Europe. There's no way that I'm going to forget about food. But I think in that first 6 to 8 months, you forget about food because you're not hungry. You don't really care about where you're getting food from because you're not constantly thinking about food because you're not hungry. Like you go, oh shit, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I haven't had something since my shake this morning. Why do I feel lightheaded and like I'm going to be sick and like I want to pass out? Oh, it's because I haven't eaten in 7 hours. Like I was blown away by the fact that he was right. It was like he just went, boop, turn it off.
It's like the 40-hour feminine
forever.
It was just easy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I could have went 40 hours without eating.
And then, but then after that sort of 10 to 12 months, it's like they've turned a dimmer on and you slowly start thinking about food again. And it's kind of like now where we are, where I'm 3.5 years out, and that light switch has been flicked straight back on again. And I constantly think about food, but I think about it in a different way. And
Sometimes.
sometimes I just want to shovel food into my mouth as well. But other times I sit there and go, I'm going out for dinner tonight. I'm going to eat oysters instead of the chicken palmy.
Yeah.
Like I just didn't realize that. Yeah, it's just in that first year, the weight will come off. Just make the choices in that first year.
Use it
wisely.
Yeah.
And I think you're doing exactly that.
And that's what I mean. Like the approach you're taking is perfect because it's like you're not going to change overnight. It's just having the approach to understand there is more there.
We just waffled for like 15 minutes to just sort of say that you're doing amazing.
You're doing amazing. And I still say we never want to take things away from people in the first year because I know that first year is so freaking vital and it's so important.
And it feels hard. That year does feel hard.
Yep. Freaking hard. Like I went through a divorce in the whole time, so
the mental stuff is the hard stuff. Like not being hungry is so weird, and like going out for dinner and knowing you can't eat, even though it looks so delicious, and you know that you love that food, but
and you
not
get food envy. You
hungry.
see other people's food
so
on the table,
envious.
and you're like, I just want to eat that, but you can't.
So envious. Like there's definitely things that you need to. There is definitely some challenges mentally in the first year, but I think the one thing I've learned from listening to this podcast, and you guys have guests on all the time that are 3, 5, 7, 6 months out, is that you need to use the first year as the period to get better and to work on those, as you said, Shan, the things that you're doing to self-sabotage yourself. One of mine was emotional eating. Yeah. So now if I've had a bad day, that's my goal at the moment, is just working on if I've had a bad day or I'm stressed, what can I do instead of going for food, because I know I can't eat anymore, and I need something to make myself feel better. So what can I do instead? So just reflecting on different parts.
Well, again, like in that like you like hit the nail in the head. I used to be come home and eat and drink, and then it's become put a podcast in, go for a run.
Yeah.
Make out with Lita a little bit. Like. Implementing those other habits that aren't so like food related.
It works for him. It doesn't work for me.
Makes it more.
It makes me want to drink.
And more. Ain't that the truth?
Joking.
No, I think you are, and it's all about like transitioning those habits, transitioning those mental stresses. I guess like where it's like you used to think about food and just like maybe realize there's more out there. With that mental freedom comes a few more options. So.
Well, we would absolutely love to touch base with you again in sort of 10, 12
approach.
Months and see where we're at. Just see, because from talking to you now, like...
Yeah. Well, I think I think the biggest thing is like sometimes like we have people on this podcast where they talk about like, as much as Instagram's a highlight reel, our podcast can be a highlight reel. You can say what you don't want people to judge you. You don't want people, where I think you're approaching it with the open mentality of like, I'm just going to share what's about me because at the end of the day, it's going to help me. And I think that's really important. Never lose that, because like, a year and a half down the track, you can sit there and self-analyze yourself and understand that like, we aren't perfect. Well, no one's perfect, but it's also you wanting to understand that is sometimes the key to succeeding long term.
And I feel like if we were to touch base with you again in like a year and a half, you have come leaps and bounds, and you'll be kind of like,
I'm probably going
I remember what I thought back in when I was 6 months out, and now look at me. Like, who was that person? Like, what you're talking about the person beforehand.
As much as like people may be on Instagram, like, you've changed or whatever, never be afraid to change. Never be afraid to...
Growth. It's growth. Not training.
It's like, as much as people may like, you've changed. Yeah, I probably did. Since yesterday, and then I'll probably change again tomorrow, because that's what this process is about.
There's that meme where it's like a caterpillar is talking to a butterfly, and the caterpillar goes to the butterfly, "You've changed," and he goes, "Yeah, well, that was the point. That's what we're meant to do."
But it's also like you don't know, like you're going through a growth period. It's like what you think today might not be what you think tomorrow, and then tomorrow may not be what you think today.
Yeah,
like that's fine. Like it's you.
I've lost one of my very good friends since I've lost the weight, purely because our values are so different now. She used to love sitting around eating junk food and drinking soft drink and not doing anything all day. And to me now, is not what aligns, and she doesn't want to. She doesn't have to, but she doesn't find joy in the things that I find joy in now. So I would say, let's go to the local pond and walk around and do 5Ks. And she's like, no, like, I want to get schnitz for lunch. Like, she doesn't. She thinks that I cheated by getting the sleeve, and she's overweight herself, and I think there's a lot of jealousy there.
Yeah.
But sometimes, as you said, when you grow and when you change, you will outgrow other people as well. And
you will.
I was actually really worried. I think I messaged you, Lita, like early on before I even had my sleeve, and I said, I'm really scared. I don't know who I am without being the fat friend and the fat girlfriend. Like, I don't know who I am outside of that. That was my personality, was the fat girl. And I was so worried that my partner wouldn't like me anymore because I'd be different, and my friends wouldn't like me, and I'd be miserable because I was smaller and I didn't know who I was going to be. But we can laugh at that conversation now, Lita, because I think the person I am now is tenfold better than the person I used to be, and I get to like reinvent myself now, and I get to wear the clothes I want to wear, and I don't have to tolerate shit from people anymore because I know that I deserve better. And it's been real
a powerful
good.
place. It's a very powerful place. I love that. Like, because it 100%.
And if somebody wants to have that same conversation with you that you had with me, where can they reach you?
Please. Amanda VSG, come for me.
Come for me. There's a lot of
I have a feeling that you probably will have quite a few people coming for you because, as we've said a few times tonight, like, you've just got your head screwed on and you.
I look forward to seeing your approach going forward, and I think I'll be watching your journey closely as well, just to see how things go, and like maybe indulge myself in a little bit of your intelligence moving forward, because I think you have a lot of good information going forward that I think I would even benefit from, because whether you're 6 months out, whether you're 6 years out, I could learn from you, you can learn from me, we can all learn from each other, because we all have different approaches that might just one day go, wow, okay, maybe
that made sense.
That could work for me too. So thank you so much for coming on, Barry Banter. It's been an absolute pleasure. And what can I say? Thank you.
It's another
Thanks for
episode
having me.
of Barry Banter.
Well, yes, that is another episode of Barry Banter in the books. We hope you got a little something from that one.
Head on over to Facebook or Instagram and check us out, or go to baribanter.com where you can watch past episodes, give us feedback, and let us know who you want to hear from next.
We love you all, and as always, please stay beautiful.